Part about that was that I kept telling him that if to you that's a lot of blood and that's a lot of blood, it's no big deal. And I was just trying to pinpoint, like, to me, that's not a lot of blood, though. Like, it's really not a big deal. It's not anything to fight over. James has this thing, though, like, I don't know. You don't have to agree with somebody 100% of the time. No one's going to agree 100% of the time. If you want a clone of yourself, you don't want. That's not anything. Like, I don't know. I don't get it. Like, I don't want a clone of myself. I respect James's viewpoints and opinions, and if to him blowing his nose and having some blood come out, and that's a lot of blood to him, that's a lot of blood to him. I even tried to tell him that, like, your point of view is right. This is my point of view on it, though. Like, as well, like, we're both right. We're both, like, 100% right in our points of view because it's personal points of view. And, he comes up with facts. Well, his facts are facts and my opinions are not. And I remember the one time we were over at Anne's house and I was doing the laundry and I wanted to do the laundry and then pack up the car to get ready to go because I used to go down to Anne's house so that James could visit, but I was spending more money on gas to get to and from than we were working for her, right, out in the yard. And so I did it a few times so that James could spend time with Anne. And then I'm like, I am wasting a Saturday. I was working 2 to 7 jobs at a time. I was working a lot. I was working around the clock. And, I'd get a free Saturday, open Saturday. And we'd drive down to Anne's house so that James could work for her. Well, gas at the time was almost $5. I had a 6-cylinder car. Half a tank was $70, right? I'd spend more money because I'd spend a tank of gas. So I'm spending like $120 to get to and from. Going out to Jersey from Philadelphia. We were on one side of Philadelphia. We were going all the way down Route 1 and going that way. So like, it was like, a 2.5 hour ride, 3 hour ride, whatever, getting stuck in traffic. At the time, my 6-cylinder was doing the putt-putt thing. I have an M engine and Tony, basically my uncle, he replaced my valves for me, and we were working on the car and then it started sputtering out and stuff, so I had a miss, and we didn't realize it was a miss because it was an M cylinder engine for a while. And so I was getting like 14 miles to the gallon or something like that. So we were spending like 2.5 hours riding in the car, filling up the tank, whatever. And it was a fun trip. It was a fun day because James was off the computer and we were out of the house and, we were working in the yard together. And I thought that was great. But I was spending all this money to get to and from, and I'm like, this is too much money. This is not worth it for me to spend an entire day. I'm like, it's my only Saturday out of the month, and I need to get the clothes done. I need to do this and that. So, okay, so I'm wasting all this money going to and from, right? A wasted trip for me. I wasn't really all that fond of Anne. I was fond of James spending time with his family because I thought they were good people, and Alexis was trying to cause problems because she was like, stay away from these people. And then I met Danielle, and Danielle's like, what are you doing here? Get away from these people. You don't want to be here. So I had these two women that I thought, oh, well, James and Danielle used to be together, and James and Alexis were together. So I'm like, okay, so they just want me out of the picture. So I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to bring James around his family as much as possible. That's what I tried to do. Whatever. And so, anyway, so I was driving to and from Jersey, and James was working for her, and they were giving him money, and James wouldn't share the money. And they were giving him like $40, I think. Like, that was it. And it's like, don't you realize that a tank of gas is way more than that? Like, especially at the time period that we were talking about. Like, gas is cheap again, but I mean, back then, obviously, gas was, $4.50, $4.80, $4.90, $5. Like, it was up. And I only put the best gas, 93 octane, in my car because I had a 94 6-cylinder that needed the best gas, that needed, to be able to be running and stuff. So that's what I did. And I'd even put different things in the car to make it run better and whatever. And, but at the time, I needed a tune-up. I wasn't getting good gas mileage. It was whatever. So, like, it was like a 2.5 hour ride or something like that to and from. And, so to and from for 5 hours in the car, which I thought was spectacular because I was spending time with James. And anyway, so I'm like, okay, this isn't worth it. So I started bringing my laundry down. So I figured the money I was saving from laundry, which was like $20, and made up for some of the gas and stuff. And I remember the one time I was down there, and I'm like, I am using my Saturday. And this was after Jeff's mom died, and we helped him move her stuff to Ann's house and his house because they lived together. And I froze my tail off. My feet were freezing. I wasn't wearing the right type of gear to stay warm. And it sucked. So I'm like, okay, this isn't worth it. Like, that was my last trip where it was just like, okay, I'm bringing clothes down next time that we come here. I'm not doing this anymore. I am not working anymore. I don't get any money anyway. This isn't worth it at all. This sucks. So I started bringing clothes down, and I was washing clothes in the basement because that's where the laundry is. And so I was bringing stuff up, and it was like, okay, well, now that we brought it upstairs, I'm bringing it up to the car. James started talking about efficiency. This is efficient, that's efficient, this is efficient. You're not being efficient, because he wanted to wait until we were leaving to load the car with the clothes. So we got into this big fight over what's efficient and what's not. And even Ann was like, James, you have to accept other people's points of view. And he's like, no, these are the facts. These are the facts. These are the facts. And Ann turned around, and she's like, you're just like your father. I should have reevaluated my situation then. And this was before, his brother, Steven, did all kinds of stuff to me, and then I don't talk to that side of the family anymore because they took Steven's side, and Ann wanted her keys, so I mailed out keys to Ann, and Ann called James while he was at work, and James came home yelling at me about keys, and, the keys got lost in the mail, and someone's going to break into Ann's house, and I'm just like, that's crazy. Those keys do not have addresses on them. Like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. So I get on the phone, I call Ann, I'm like, Ann, I sent out those keys. And this was like 2 days after, I was locked in that house for like 7.5 hours. And, so I was still in like shell shock. And, they wanted and needed these keys right away. And Renee gave me her home set of keys. Big set of keys, heavy set of keys. I sent it out in an envelope that I taped up very well. And they were like, oh yeah, this should be fine, whatever. And so, anyway, so I get on the phone with Ann, and I'm like, Ann, James was at work. Why are you calling him while he's at work? Like, what are you doing? He gets stressed out easily, and I'm like, I'm still in shock. And, like, why are you calling him while you're, like, and my main thing was while he was at work. And she goes, who do you think you are? And I'm like, his partner. That's who I think I am. I'm his partner. And, obviously I did this, and I told her right then and there, I'm like, if you have a problem with something that I do, you call me about it, and you tell me about it. And that was a world of mistake. This was right before I got into counseling. And I told the counselor this. And the counselor is like, don't you dare have that lady call you. She's like, you're not related to her, are you? And I'm like, no. She's like, why are you dealing with your in-laws? And I'm like, oh, I have no idea. I'm like, I was trying to be nice and trying to be open. And she's like, well, what do you call Renee? And I'm like, I met her when I was 19. She had me call her mom. And, at this point in time, I was 26. I'm 29 now. So, and I'm about to be 30. So I was 26, about to be 27 back then. And like, I believe. And so I was like, oh, this lady had me call her mom. And she's like, why? Why would you ever like condone that and accept that? And she's like, this is bad behavior. She's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I was like so happy for the counseling, and a lot of things were resolved. And, James didn't go to counseling with me back then, just like he won't go to counseling with me now. It's a different counselor. Now it's free counseling. Back then it was paid counseling. If I would have had to pay for it, my medical insurance covered for it, though, because it was through, like the courts. It was, like, through the courts. Because I had PTSD from shell shock or whatever it was. Like, I don't know, like I got really scared, whatever. And so yeah, I kind of disconnected myself from these people completely. I don't deal with them. I don't talk to them. I don't call them. And like I tried to be really open and really friendly and really like, oh, yeah, you guys are great. And every time that we were there anyway, because I had to make James go to different events. And they were like, oh, you should leave her, blah, 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 because I'd forced James to go to events and he didn't want to go. He wanted to be on his games. He wanted to be doing whatever. And then now he's trying to force me to go to some events. I'm like, I'm not going to this. No, you can't make me, And but anyway, the one time I was at Ann's house, I decided I was finished cleaning because I wasn't getting paid anyway. It wasn't going to me. It was going to James, and James didn't share. And all the money that I was spending on gas to and from. I'm like, okay, this is not worth it. It's not worth it to take down trees for her in the backyard and to do whatever like that she wanted us to do. I think it was just like, oh yeah, work on this, just work on this or work on that, like just to have something to do at her house. I don't think it was actual work anyway. Like she'd have us clean up the windows and whatever, but like I don't think it was actual work. It was just like made up work so that we could go down to her house and earn money, which we weren't earning money. And so the one Saturday, I'm like, okay, I'm going to clean up my car. And her and Jeff, they were standing behind me, and I heard them. And I'm like, just ignore them, and they just, do what you're doing. And Jeff's like, why isn't she working? And Anne's like, I don't know, I guess she doesn't want to earn any money. And I wanted to turn around right then and there and be like, you honestly think I'm earning money? Like, where do you guys live? The 1920s? The money that you give us isn't even covering gas. Like, I have a 6-cylinder. What do you think I'm driving? What do you think the car prices are? Like, we don't have fancy new cars like you guys did. Like, whatever. Like, it was, but I was just like, don't say anything. They're older people. Just leave them go. And I'm like, I'm an older person too, but like, just leave it go. It doesn't matter. So it was whatever. But no, she even tried to be like, you have to be open to other people's points of view. And James is like, no, this is my facts. This is efficiency. And we actually got into a fight on the way home about efficiency and how he was right. And I just had to just be like, okay, fine, you're right. This is efficient the way that you want to do it. Because instead of just getting all the work done at once, I don't know, he wanted to rest on the couch and then take the laundry out when we were leaving because that was more efficient. It's like, why wouldn't you just want to take the laundry out while you're in the midst of moving? And this way, when you sit down and relax, you can sit down and relax. And then when you go home, you can sit in the car and relax. And then, when you get there, you can take all the clothes out and I'll put all the clothes away. Like, help me do this. And so, yeah, she was just like, oh, wow, you're so much like your friggin' father. And, and he still has that problem. Like, if he has a fact that is a fact that he believes is a fact, that's just what it is. That's what he says is what it is. And I just don't get it because I don't get how you can't accept someone else's points of view. You have to be able to accept someone else's points of view. Your facts are fine as facts. Like, if you could actually pull something up and be like, oh, look, this is where I read it. Like, I could read that and be like, oh, yeah, that's great. But, I mean, your personal beliefs do create reality. And I understand that the science of it does put a lot behind it, but like, damn, like, I don't know, between a lot and a little, and a lot of pain versus little, like, when it comes to personal pain, personal preference, personal viewpoints on how much is a lot or a little, that's personal choice. Like, if he views that as a lot of blood, I should be able to give him a little bit of food and be like, here, that's a lot, because you think a lot is a lot. Like, no, I would never do that. That's just cruel, because what he thinks is a lot of blood is a lot of blood. It's his point of view. Just like what I think is a lot of blood, from my point of view, is a lot of blood. So it's whatever. I don't know. Alright, well, that's it for my update. I'm just rocking my little girl and letting her sleep. I'm so glad that my voice doesn't wake her up. So, I don't even think I have a cold. I think I just have a stuffy nose. I've had a stuffy nose since I had that cold last week. It hasn't gone away yet. It's just what it is. So, my little girl's so precious. Yeah, I love her so much. And I don't know. I think I have to start just going, yes, dear, more often. And, oh, that sounds fantastic or something. Or, yeah, you're right. And just not, I have to stop putting in my points of view, I think. Because he doesn't want my points of view anyway. He just wants, like, back in the day, he just wanted someone to be home with him when I was working a lot. So that's why he'd call Alexis and be like, oh, come down to the house or whatever. And, they'd hang out a lot because I wasn't home. I was working, trying to keep a roof over our heads and food in our mouths. And, and so that was that. And then I guess nowadays, now that I'm home, he doesn't just want someone who's home with him. He wants someone who will agree with him no matter what they actually think. Even though he says he doesn't want that. That's seems to be the underlying problem, I think, in a relationship. So I think I could do that. I could just be like, yes, dear. I understand that it's supposed to go the other way around, but I mean, our relationship, James is so much of, he likes the knickknacks. He doesn't want to do this and that. He doesn't want to like this and that. Like, you can't get him to leave the house. He likes to sleep on the weekends. He likes to play his video games. He's, to me, very stagnant. And, so, like, if he wants someone to just yes him, I could just yes him. I could do that. I could do that. I have to start doing that more. Just be like, yes, dear. And I thought that was supposed to be the other way around. I don't know. But, like, he's very set in his ways. And he wants people to think like him, even if they don't. And he thinks that everyone's going to turn into his mother, his father, or his brother. That's a really big issue I need to talk to the counselor about. Because that's a big issue. Someone can't be someone else. You can't turn and metamorph into someone else. You have to be yourself. So, I mean, I know that people try to copy other people's behaviors and stuff, but, I mean, that's not, except for, like, really young people and older people. They don't try to do that. It's the middle ground where people are trying to get on with each other and get along. You know, I could do that. I could see where I'm causing that flux.